Hey guys, hope everybody's having an awesome day. So I was going to do a video today, but I saw that Samuel posted in the group here a couple of questions which I really thought were going to be kind of cool to address. So he said basically he talked about fats, carbs, and protein. What I wanted to know was when I switch to lean ground beef for pork, how do I determine the appropriate or equivalent portion? Is 6 ounces of lean ground beef the same as 6 ounces of lean pork? And Samuel, not at all. And what I'm going to do is I would just refer you to the other video on kind of how to do the macro changes, but I think that this is kind of like a good case study that we can kind of touch up on, and I can just kind of bring that back. But if you missed that video on the YouTube channel, there is one with how to use MyFitnessPal. So I'm going to kind of recap. Let's just say hypothetically speaking, and I've got everything set up here in the app. So one second. So let's just say I brought up your meal plans, and this is where you are, right? For your dinner, for example, you're having 1 cup of lentils, 6 ounces of extra lean ground beef, as well as 1.5 cups of broccoli raw chopped. So I came over to the MyFitnessPal, which is the terminal that I use, and whenever I'm doing fitness plans, I tend to use the desktop version because it's just easier to put together. So I've put together your dinner right here in front of us, all the same portion sizes, all the same amounts, right? I think that the really, really important thing that we have to talk about that I've been absolutely preaching is the difference between choosing complex carbohydrates versus simple carbohydrates. If you choose simple carbohydrates, um, you're putting your body into a high insulin state, and you're going to end up storing fat. So you really want to make sure that whatever you're replacing complex carbohydrates, you're replacing it with additional complex carbohydrates. But tonight I just wanted to do like a little bit of a case study, and I've got a ton more on this. But so let's just say, for example, you wanted to switch it up and you wanted to have some pork, right? You can do so. There's not a lot of lean cuts of pork. I do love pork, but when I'm dieting, it's not a massive part of my diet. However, one part of pork which is actually pretty decent is pork loin. So let's just say tonight we wanted to have some pork. We go into add food here under lunch, and I'm just doing some comparisons. So I loaded up exactly what you had. I'm going to search for pork loin, Loin, pork loin, 4 ounces. And anything that's got a green check mark beside it means that it's been verified by MyFitnessPal. So it's usually a pretty accurate indication. So we're going to go with pork loin, right? Just regular pork loin. We're going to say 6 ounces. So right now the serving size is set at 1 4-ounce serving. We're going to come over here. We're going to switch this to 6 ounces. And then we're going to add the food to our diary. So initially, right, when we look at the difference, we've got 180 calories and 6 ounces of meat. Protein is actually higher, and the fat is significantly reduced. So pork loin is a pretty good option if we wanted to get our portion sizes a little bit closer to that 6 ounces of beef, right, at 306 calories. We're going to go over here and we're going to try. Let's see what happens when we do a massive 9 ounces of pork loin. So we're a little closer still. And of course, you can either switch it up and have a bigger portion to match that. But all in all, as long as the two meals match in terms of calories, in terms of protein, and they're relatively close in fats, that's really what we're going for, as well as making sure that we're choosing complex carbohydrates. So all of a sudden, we've got 10 ounces of pork loin, which has 3 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat, and a huge amount of protein. Now, when you look at the two differences, our fat is less. We have a little bit more carbs, but it's pretty negligible. And the overall protein content of the meal itself is actually 58 grams, or of the beef, the meat itself is actually 58 grams versus 36 grams. So we've taken some of this fat and we moved it over into our protein. I find that most men work better and lose better weight, make better gains while losing weight on a lower fat diet. And this isn't always the case. How our body works and how our body processes foods and how our body digests foods and how we allocate energy is very different from person to person. However, my starting point with people tends to be on a high protein, a mid carbohydrate, and a lower fat diet. I find that that's kind of the perfect combination that gives you the right amount of energy to be able to execute your workouts with the least amount of fat so that you're able to lose fat quicker, as well as the higher version of protein. So we're looking here, we're pretty close with our measurements, right? So we've got pork loin, Now we do also want to get approximately, we want to make sure that we've got some sort of carbohydrate in there, preferably a complex carbohydrate. So maybe tonight, for example, we feel like having some quinoa. So Quinoa. We're going to look for quinoa. It's going to take a little while for you to play around with this until you can really, really kind of master it. But so now we've got quinoa. Unfortunately, with that quinoa, our portion size was too big. That's 100 grams dry. So we're going to try to change that out. We're going to say 1 gram, and it's about double the size of the other one. So instead of 100, let's just try 35 grams of quinoa. Oh, that's a little bit more than 35 grams. Pardon me here. Okay, no, it's still saying 13.9. So we're going to keep this simple. We're going to go with cups, which is also easy to work with. And I'm going to say probably half a cup. 318, we're still a little high, so maybe we'll go with approximately a little over a third of a cup of quinoa. That's a little bit closer. If we're looking at our protein, right, this meal actually has more protein. This meal has less fat. You can't eat too little fat, so you do want to keep them relatively close, because if you don't eat enough fat, your body isn't able to function properly. But if you're high on protein, a little lower on fats, then that tends to be okay. Here with the carbs, we're a little bit off. Let's just say today we wanted to switch up and we wanted to have some green beans. So we'll take a look down here. You would typically search by green bean in here, and green beans would come up. I have them preloaded in there. Let's see what 2 cups of green beans comes out to. So 559, we're actually pretty close. Our carbs are a little bit higher on this new substitution. Our fat is lower, but our protein is higher as well. So we've got lower fat, lower protein, and I would say our carbs are pretty close within the normal range. If you really wanted to tidy it up, I mean, you can. You can mess with this. It says 2 cups. Now we're going to go with, for example, 1.8 cups. And that's not quite there either, sorry. 0.9 cups. 556. Actually, maybe I needed to add a little bit. So it really depends. You want to keep them as close as you can. But as long as your protein's in line, you're choosing complex carbohydrates, then ultimately you're going to be fine. So 54.49, I would say that's pretty close. Our fat is lower, our protein is actually higher, and off we are. We're off to enjoy some pork loin tonight. So if we wanted to do something else, let's just say we're not feeling ground beef tonight. We want to try something else. We're looking at our calories. Maybe we're in the mood for baked chicken breast. So we're going to click on some baked chicken breast, right? Want to add some complex carbohydrates in there. I was thinking maybe tonight we're going to have some brown rice, if it's accessible. Ground beef. Okay, we'll do a search for it. So we're going to look for brown rice. Morrison, half a cup, dry. It's got the green check mark, so we know that it's probably pretty accurate. Then our carb portion, we probably want to maybe even double that, really, right? Let's double it. So we're going to go with 1 cup. And we've got 488, and of course, can't forget your leafy greens, whatever that might be. So we're going to go down here, and maybe today we want to switch it up. We want to eat some peas. High in fiber. Okay, so we're still a little bit high with these peas. Maybe we're going to do 110 grams. Let's just say we'll switch it here. That was 120. Let's do 110 grams. And there you go. Should be pretty close, I would imagine. 584, right? We go over here and we check. We've actually got more protein, way lower fat. And we've made up for the fat, obviously, in carbohydrates, which probably isn't that bad considering our carbohydrates are complex carbohydrates. The most important thing that we're aiming for is to make sure our protein is the same and that our fat ratio is lower and that any carbohydrates that we're using are complex. These are a little bit of a difference, but to be honest with you, I'm not so worried about it because I think that men, generally speaking, function better on higher carbs, lower fat. So you're just cutting a little bit out of your fat content and putting it towards your carbs. If you didn't want to do that, for example, you want to switch something different, maybe we're going to say 1.5 if you are concerned about your fat levels, you want them to be a little bit closer. Then we could go with something rather, 0.5. So now we're going to go with a half a cup of that. We're sitting at 460. And then because our fats are significantly different from there, maybe we want to add something a little bit healthier. Maybe we want to get our fats from one of those sources that we were talking about, polyunsaturated fats. So what are we going to do? We are going to look to enjoy an avocado. Let's see how much a half an avocado medium comes up to, where we're sitting at 585, 46, 49, 16 as opposed to 18, and our protein is higher. So that's a win too, right? Our avocado comes in. We've got a little bit of an avocado now. We've got some brown rice. We're mostly worried we don't want to make our fats higher than the meal. Carbohydrates, as long as they're complex, we're not super worried about it, as long as the level of protein is equivalent or higher. So I thought overall that was a pretty good question. And I just wanted to review how easily you can do this with MyFitnessPal and how you can make substitutions. But just again, as a caution to this, if you choose simple carbohydrates over complex carbohydrates, your body's going to start storing things as insulin. Your body's going to spike your insulin. You're going to start storing things as fat. So it's not calorie in, calorie out. It has very much to do with your carbohydrate source. So I wanted to do that. You also asked me another really good question. I'm going to post this article. You can see here. How bad is sodium consumption for an athlete? And several studies have demonstrated no benefit to sodium restriction when it comes to preventing heart disease or death. While reducing sodium intake can lower blood pressure, the change is rather small and likely to have negligible effects on your health. An average person who loses his or her salt intake from the median levels may see a drop in blood pressure, which is pretty insignificant. So I'm going to post this article as well. If you have blood pressure issues, high sodium is not good, but we're not so worried about sodium when it comes to our condiments, and that's what I'm about to segue into here, condiments, because that was another question you asked. When I'm choosing condiments that I want to use, what's kind of the acceptable range, and is sodium an issue? And for a lot of years, we thought sodium was. What they're finding out is that sodium isn't necessarily an issue. What is an issue, guys, and what I've been kind of preaching since day one is sugar. Sugar is an issue because it readily converts to glucose, and it also spikes your insulin levels, making you less insulin resistant, which ultimately means you're going to store more things as fat. But I'm also going to post this as well. Sugar also contributes to inflammation, and inflammation in your body can cause a number of issues, anything from illness to cancer to a plethora of other issues. Inflammation is typically caused by artificial sweeteners is one cause of them. However, sugar is substantially worse. Essentially, I don't even know if artificial sweeteners don't necessarily cause inflation if you're working with stevia, which is why I always recommend stevia. However, it's kind of a trade-off. Living, the healthy lifestyle, you probably will see yourself exposed to artificial sweeteners a lot more. Ultimately, it's kind of your choice to make. I kind of liken it to the lesser of the two evils, and sugar is substantially worse for you than artificial sweeteners, in my personal opinion, and based on a lot of the stuff that I've read. And here's 10 examples of why sugar is bad for you. So when you're choosing your condiments, you want to choose condiments that are as low in sugar as possible. You're not so worried about sodium, at least from my perspective. You shouldn't be unless you already have high hypertension or issues related to sodium in your diet. Added sugar contains no essential nutrients. It's bad for your teeth. Of course, that's the baseline one, right? Added sugar is high in fructose, which can overload your liver. Of course, increasing glucose. We'll talk about the difference between glucose and fructose later on, but sugar converts to glucose, which increases inflammation and also increases your insulin levels. So moving on here, another reason, overloading the liver with fructose can cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is bad, of course. Sugar can cause insulin resistance, a stepping stone towards metabolic syndrome and diabetes. Insulin resistance can progress to type 2 diabetes from excessive sugar. Sugar can give you cancer, and it's true. It's been shown, right? It causes inflammation in your body. Um, as you can see here, in addition to metabolic problems associated with sugar consumption, is a known driver of inflammation and other potential causes of cancer, right? People who eat a lot of sugar are much higher risk of getting cancer, bottom line. So due to its effects on hormones in the brain, sugar has unique fat promoting effects, as we kind of spoke about. It increases your insulin, which means you store more foods of sugar. Because it causes a massive dopamine release, sugar is highly addictive, and that's something we all know. And it's also, of course, the leading contributor to obesity in both children and adults, right? It's not the fat, it's the sugar that raises your cholesterol and gives you heart disease. Well, we kind of know that that's not entirely true. While new studies are showing that saturated fat is harmless, the best fats are, of course, polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. You do want to avoid trans fats at all costs, but sugar is kind of the silent killer, and that's what science is showing. So you also asked me some question about, um, if I'm trying to find a condiment that doesn't suck and is still healthy for me. So I brought up a bunch of different options, and I wanted to talk about some of them. All these options are available on Amazon, and I did that on purpose so that if you guys wanted to order these, you're welcome to. This is Simple Girl Organic Carolina Barbecue Sauce, low calorie, sugar-free, diabetic, vegan friendly. The best way to check the label is we go over here. We see how many net calories there are. In this, for 2 tablespoons, which is a pretty generous serving, you're looking at 5 calories, right? You're looking at zero fat. You do want to keep your fats low. If there are any fat in there, you want to make sure that that's incorporated into your diet itself. However, if you are incorporating fats into any of the condiments that you're using, your best bet, of course, is going to be polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and of course, saturated in pinch. Cholesterol, 0, which is good. Your sodium's a little bit, there's got a little bit of sodium in there, but all in all, that's not that bad. And it does want to have 1 gram of carbohydrates, which is not a sugar, which means it probably comes from artificial sweetener, and it probably doesn't even count. So this overall is a really good choice because it's relatively low in sodium. It doesn't have any sugar in it at all, and it's a good product. It's got a little bit of vitamin A there, pretty minimal, but that would be something I would use to flavor my food, and I wouldn't sweat it too much. We're going to talk about different hot sauces, for example. Now, not all hot sauces are low in sugar. That's misleading. So when you're checking your labels, you want to go here, right? How many calories? There's 0 calories in this, 0 fat, 0 cholesterol, a little bit of sodium, as we talked about, which isn't really going to kill you, 0 fiber, 0 sugars. And there's a lot of things out there like this. Unfortunately, a lot of the other hot sauces, you really do have to check those things. You have to make sure that it doesn't have any sugar, and or that it does have minimal sugar, and it doesn't have any fat in it. So I want to move on to the next product that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I just pulled this up, right? This is beautiful because it's got no artificial sweeteners. It's sweetened with actual stevia itself. And we go check the nutritional facts on this: 0 fat, 0 cholesterol, 110 milligrams of sugar. It's got 2 grams of carbs, 1 gram is sugar, and 1 gram would probably be some other type of fiber. So overall, 1 gram of sugar for 2 tablespoons. If you put a couple of tablespoons, this is not a deal breaker. It's got 10 calories. It's a really good choice. It's called Stevia Sweet Barbecue, and you can find that on Amazon or any low-carb grocery store. I wanted to talk about something that I'm a huge fan of, and in particular, now soy sauce. Now, once again, you really have to take the time. You have to check the labels on soy sauce because I'm willing to bet that this is super tasty. But when you click on it, this is maybe on the excessive end for sodium. You're looking at 1,300 milligrams for 1 tablespoon. Like I said, sodium isn't a huge thing, but this is pretty high in sodium. Well, it's got 0 fat and it's low in calories. It also has 4 grams of carbohydrates for 1 tablespoon, and 3 grams of that is a sugar. So I would say that if you were going to use a soy sauce, there are better options out there, and I have one lined up. But you want to look for the lower sodium soy sauces in a pinch because they tend to be pretty high in sodium, and ones that don't have 3 grams of sugar in a single tablespoon. This one as well, this is kind of a sweet soy glaze. made by Kikkoman. You look here, 40 calories, 0 fat, which is good, but 10 grams of carbs with 9 grams of sugar, which is pretty heavy. So this wouldn't be an ideal thing that you might want to use. It's really good to get used to picking up things and reading their labels. And then even if you wanted to keep track of your condiments, you could scan them with MyFitnessPal and do it that way. So here's another one. This is a flaming fruit sauce, Jesse's flaming fruit sauce, which is available. It's blueberry ginger, medium heat. Looks like a pretty good product. I'm going to click on here. Um, and this is probably one of the more questionable ones as well. It looks good. I'll bet you it tastes amazing. It's got 20 calories. It has 0 fat, but it has 6 grams of carbs, 5 grams of sugar. That's starting to chip into your caloric intake a little bit, albeit not super significantly. If you had maybe 1 tablespoon, this might not be the worst, but there's definitely better products out there that you could use. I would put this on the be very cautious list, but in a pinch, it would work. I want to talk to you as well here. Hawaiian teriyaki marinade sauce, which we're gonna look at together, made by Freddy's Fabulous. I'm sold. We're gonna look at this, and I'm trying to bring up. I thought I had it. Here it is. So we're going to bring up the information, right? This has got. This is probably one that's like a use sparingly list. It's got 1 tablespoon, 0 fats, 4 grams of sugar, which is a little high. 1 dietary fiber, which isn't too bad, and it doesn't have any fat. So at the end of the day, a tablespoon with this, but if you go a little liberal on this, then you're sinking into some pretty dangerous territory. And most barbecue sauces are actually extremely, extremely high in sugar. This is a soy sauce that I would recommend. It's called the Best of Thailand Light Soy Sauce. And this differs from the last one in the sense that when we look at the caloric intake here, 13 calories, sodium 270, so it's still high, but it's not 55% of your daily intake. There is 1 gram of sugar, which is not too bad, total 3 grams of carbs for serving. So I would say that this would make a much better replacement for the other soy sauce we're looking at. One of my favorites, of course, I wanted to bring this up with you guys, Guy's barbecue sauce. There's Guy's regular, and then there's the sugar-free. This is absolutely amazing. Tastes incredible. It's got 10 calories, 0 fat, 190 milligrams of sodium, so a little bit of sodium in 2 tablespoons, which really isn't that bad. A couple of grams of carbs, but none of those are sugar, which would lead me to believe that those carbohydrates are probably soluble fiber or insoluble fiber, sorry, which means that it's not going to count towards your net carb count. This stuff is fantastic. Guy's barbecue sauce. You can get it at most supplement shops. You can get it online at Amazon, and it's insane. Ketchup, I don't know about you guys. I'm a ketchup guy. I love my ketchup. This has changed my life, and there's a lot of them out there. This is Heinz tomato ketchup. You can actually get this at most Walmarts. No sugar added, 13 ounces. You go here, you check out the nutritional facts. 1 teaspoon has 1 gram of carbs and 1 gram of sugar. Relatively high in sodium. We're going to say 8% of your daily intake. So, but 1 tablespoon of this stuff, on your egg whites just to enjoy is not going to make or break your diet. So, highly recommended. Heinz, no sugar added. I'm going to talk about some syrups as well that you can use for your coffees, which are really, really good. Torani, they have a sugar-free and a regular version. This actually has 0 calories in it, and it's got some pretty good flavors. You'll see this at Starbucks and a lot of different places. You can order these online just to flavor anything from your drinks to baked goods to food, everything from vanilla, hazelnut, peppermint, chocolate macadamia nut, caramel, vanilla. The list goes on. They're really, really good. They're affordable when you get them in bundle packs, and they will change your coffee game. The negative thing about these is they typically do use artificial sweeteners, so you do want to use it sparingly. However, if you're going to put this side by side with something that's got sugar in it, I don't think there's any comparison in terms of overall health. Last thing I wanted to mention with you guys was Flavor God seasonings. These things are incredible. They're actually gluten-free, GMO, like vegan, 0 sodium, and these things are incredible. You can use basically whatever spices you want as long as they don't contain sugar. Flavor God is one of my favorites. Garlic lovers, everything's spicy. It's got a pizza flavor, taco flavor, lemon and garlic. There's a ton of these. They're really, really good, and there's a lot of really good low sodium spices that you can find right inside of your own grocery store. So worth checking out. The last thing I wanted to do was head over to answer Simon's question here on Facebook. There was a follow-up question, and it was on fats. He wanted to know what should the proportion of fats that he's eating be. Well, as I've kind of said, they found a pretty low bearing in saturated fat and overall health effects and health risks, right? So the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter so much as long as it's better to get your fats from polyunsaturated and monounsaturated, but they're really not seeing any correlation here in between saturated fat and heart disease. It just is proven to not be true. So, so that as well. I'm just going to continue on with your email. Low sugar ketchup, 1 milligram. That's beautiful. Use that. Soy sauce substitute, 320 milligrams of sodium per serving. That's relatively high, but honestly, as long as you're drinking lots of water, as long as you're working out hard, I don't think it's going to be a game ender for you. A meat sauce that has 5 grams of sugar and 120 milligrams in sugar of sodium, that's getting into higher territory. You can find sauces that, like some of the ones that I just mentioned, either in Walmart or in your grocery store that are a little bit lower. I would say anything over 3 grams of sugar per serving is starting to test the zone, because I think sometimes we tend to carry it away. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you guys want to post supplements, or you guys see stuff and you want to post them in the group, like, is this okay? Will this work? Then please let me know, and I'm more than happy to kind of do a review, and we can talk about the positive points and the negative points. So awesome questions today, Simon. You guys are killing it. I just wanted to address it. I thought it was a good topic for today's chat. So thanks so much for asking that question, Simon. If you guys have other questions that you want to see addressed in videos, post them in the group. I'll follow it up. That's what you guys are paying me for. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Enjoy. Bye.